Hey guys, what's going on? Laying back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about The Bombardment. The Bombardment, also known by its original title The Shadow in My Eye, is a Danish war film that recounts a tragic event that took place near the end of the Second World War, in which the British Royal Air Force attempted to bomb the Gestapo's headquarters in Copenhagen to liberate resistance members, but accidentally targeted a school in the process. This resulted in the deaths of dozens of innocent children and adults, and prior to this event taking place, the movie explores the backgrounds of a variety of characters to help the audience become emotionally invested in the tragedy that is to come. I had no knowledge of this movie's events other than its title and genre, which likely played a role in influencing how much I enjoyed this movie. It's one of the few war films I've seen that not only shows an in-depth look into how the war affected civilians caught in the middle of it, but does so in brilliant fashion. As opposed to having a traditional protagonist, this movie focuses on telling the stories of multiple characters at once. Each of them vary from child to adult and from officer to civilian, but all of them are connected in some way, shape, or form. Some might not like the fact that it doesn't have a central character to root for, but in this movie's case, I think it was the right call. It shows that war doesn't discriminate, how quickly things can change in it, and the number of ways that it affects people, and it helps that all characters introduced are likable as well. Probably the most notable character in the story is Henry, a boy who witnesses an attack on civilians prior to the bombing and is traumatized to the point of being unable to speak. His actor does a phenomenal job at communicating the pain he experiences without having to say one line of dialogue. The way youth are traumatized by the war is just one of the many dark themes that are covered in this movie. Not only does Henry have to cope with his trauma, but other children also have to put up with people getting shot in the street and suffer severe injury and death at the hands of the bombardment. Another theme that's covered is religion, specifically those who suffer from a crisis of faith, and this is exemplified by a nun and teacher at the school named Teresa, who questions why God has allowed this war to continue for as long as it has. Her reactions to the story's events are completely understandable as she becomes more sympathetic in trying to deal with everything going on, and she also proved to be a minor source of amusement as well, as she starts to care less about others' perceptions about her and does things that you wouldn't normally expect a nun to do. One more notable character is Frederick, a member of the Hippo police branch established by the Gestapo. He also experiences a crisis of sorts in that he joins Hippo out of self-preservation, causing a rift between him and his family members, only to start questioning his purpose after encountering Teresa. He and every other character experiences some sort of transformation over the course of the story, which made it easy for me to become invested in them. They're all forced to change due to the horrible events of the war and the bombardment, which further emphasizes how severe the conflict really was. The only bit of character development that I thought was a bit iffy was with Henry, and that has more to do with how he was written than anything else. His trauma is kind of downplayed after the bombardment, which I found to be disappointing considering how affected he was by the movie's opening event. One immediately gets a sense of how much influence the Nazis had on Danish society when watching this. A significant amount of effort is put into details like youth singing songs dedicated to Hitler, people getting beaten on the streets, and even the Hippo's general presence being menacing. The production design in general is outstanding. I'm not the best person to consult when it comes to historical accuracy, but even just from a visual point of view, the aesthetic style of the movie is fantastic. The costumes, the vehicles, the brick streets, and just about every 1940s element you can think of looks authentic and distinctive. A dull gray color scheme is present in just about every scene as well, which highlights the atmosphere of dread and death that prevailed under the threat of Hippo forces. Pretty much every technical and creative element in it was spot on in their presentation. As I mentioned earlier, there's a number of dark themes that are covered in the movie, including crisis of faith, youth trauma, and self-preservation, just to name a few. The most notable by far, however, is how a lot of the pain and suffering is caused by the errors of war. The Royal Air Force isn't exactly portrayed in a favorable light in this movie, and with good reason. They commit not one, but two mistakes in this movie while conducting their military operations, both of which involve the deaths of innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the war. Despite these egregious errors, the Air Force isn't shown as completely unsympathetic. They understand the seriousness of the mistakes that they commit, which is reinforced by their awareness that collateral damage is inevitable to some degree, so it made me feel bad for everyone involved in this operation. And this leads me to talk talk about the actual bombardment of Copenhagen. The movie takes its time with building anticipation for this event, developing its characters, and allowing the audience to take in the world that they take place in, which also creates tension the longer it goes on. Eventually, the bombardment takes place, and I have to say that as tragic and terrible as the bombing of the school was, the way in which the bombardment was portrayed overall was exceptionally well done. The special effects of the bombing and aftermath look great, it doesn't shy away from the violence inflicted upon the children, and the sound design is terrifying with how shockwaves ripple through the buildings with each bomb landing. Everything about its technical presentation was sublime. There was one moment during the bombardment where I gasped and I swear I felt like my heart was going to drop into my stomach. This scene alone would have been effective in stressing the horrors of war and how much they hurt others, so the fact that it's preceded by so many other injustices and tragic events made it even more heartbreaking. The movie isn't entirely doom and gloom though. There are fleeting moments of humor present in the story as well, such as Teresa acting silly in front of her class, or Henry and his friends laughing about a scary story attributed to an obese storekeeper. They provide a brief break from the serious nature of the story, as well as highlighting the importance of maintaining one's humanity during wartime. Honestly, besides Henry's arc, I can't think of much to say as far as critiques are concerned. I do think it would have been interesting to see the consequences of the Air Force's actions after the bombardment had taken place, as the movie doesn't exactly end on the most conclusive note in this regard, but this is more of a nitpick than anything else. Overall, the bombardment is an amazing account of one of the many terrible tragedies committed in World War II, which shows how far and deep the effects of war can go. If you enjoy war movies and you're looking to watch one that's told from a civilian perspective, I highly recommend that you check this one out. This movie is very sad in tone and can be hard to watch at times, but it remains an important story that must be seen. Its exploration of different themes, variety of interesting characters, stunning technical presentation, and unapologetic portrayal of the brutality of war make it a hauntingly beautiful film that must be experienced. What did you think about this movie? Were you blown away by its grim cinematic style and emotional storyline, or did you find it too depressing to watch? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of The Bombardment. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American sci-fi, The Atom Project. Bye bye!